Okay, let me share my screen. You guys, if you're on your laptops, be ready to follow along. This time I can see the progress, so it's best if you you do stuff and I can fix issues as they happen. എല്ലാവരും git install ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടോ? Whoever has installed git, just raise your hand. Okay, it seems like a lot of people, if not everybody, has installed git. So I will assume that everybody has installed git. And of course, you guys must have GitHub accounts because you needed it to sign up or register for this event. So I will share a link to a repository, and we'll use this to understand how you work on a project. So here is the link. I'm putting the link in the group. It's called Hello Open Source. You don't have to write any code today. This is purely to understand how our workflow works. Now, for those of you who haven't used Git in any project so far, I'll tell you why you need Git, why Git is important, and why a lot of projects, a lot of companies, they use Git. Now, when you're working on a project, right, and you have multiple people in your team, and you're all working on the same project, you're all implementing features, and let's say you implement the setup of the entire project. You're the lead, you made the entire a setup, you installed all the packages and stuff, and now you need to share it between people. So using zip files, just sharing the files directly, is a very annoying way to do things, because what if you have to wait for everybody to acknowledge that they have got the files and those files are correct. It's very easy to mess something up. And it's just waiting for the downloads of files is just not good. It's not a good way to work. There's a lot of downtime. Additionally, with Git, you get the advantage of, if you break something accidentally, you can actually go back to the previous working version of your files. So let's say you added something to your code and it broke your code and you're not able to fix it. You don't know how to fix it. And you want to go back to the previous working version so you can start again. If it was just a normal folder with files without any Git or anything like that, it would be very difficult to go to the previous working version of the project. Additionally, Git has this concept of branches, meaning when you have a project, multiple people can work at the same time. They just make their own branch. They work or they implement their features in that branch, and then when they decide that they're done with the features and they want to bring it back to the main app or production, they can decide to make a thing called pull request, meaning they can request the maintainer of the project or the person who owns the project or takes care of the project to review their code, see if they like it, if they have any comments. And if they like the code, they can bring your code into their production thing, and it will go live to everybody. Of course, the going live to everybody is a different part of it. It's called CI/CD. But today we'll only be looking at source control. Git is a type of source control. It's the most popular source control now. So I will show you how you're supposed to work on projects. So you have this link here. I pasted this link in the group. When you work on an open source project, and this is different from when you work on a project with your team. When you work on an open source project, the way you contribute is by forking the repo. There's this concept called forking. What does forking do? Forking just takes this repository from this Nexus account and it will bring it to your account, your GitHub account, and you can work with it directly. And you don't have to be afraid of messing up the main source code, because now you have a copy of the source code in your account. Let me show you how to do that. And let me show you how to do that. So if you're on GitHub, I would advise you to open the file here, or open this URL. In GitHub, there is this button called fork. So what does fork do? Fork will let you, I already have a fork, but let me make a new one. I click on this. I click on the fork button, And I have multiple accounts, so this already I already have a fork, so it's not letting me do this. So I guess let me go to my account and delete. Be right back, 1 second. For you guys, if you don't already have Hello Open Source, it will work for you. Let me just delete this real quick, and I'll take care of this. I already forked this repo. That's how this looks. I'll just delete this once, and I'll show you how this works. Yes, I want to delete this repo. I understand. Just a second. Okay, I've deleted the thing. So now if I go to this repository and I click fork, I see some of you have already started. Good. Yes, hello open source, copy main branch only, create fork. Now I have a fork. It is processing, but soon I will have the fork here. So that's how you fork a repo. But now how do you actually work on the repo? Obviously, no one expects you to write code within GitHub. So we need a way to work on this code. So for that's why we use the git command line. There's a command line utility called git, right? Git is not dependent on GitHub. Git and GitHub is not the same thing. In fact, Git can be used with any number of these websites. GitHub is just one. There are many others. There's GitLab, there's Bitbucket. The most popular is GitHub. And what I can do with Git is I can go to this code section here. For me, it's SSH because I already have I've already configured my keys here, and I'm going to use that. But you can probably use HTTPS as well. And I do git clone. Let me go to the projects folder first. Git clone, and just paste the URL right there. So you can see here git@github.com, Milan Suman, hello opensource.git. If I run this command, it is going to download all the files in this repository. And once it's done, I'll have it in my thing here. As you can see, it's over here. And I can open it in my code editor and I can edit it. Now, when you have a project like this, if you are forking the repo, if you're not in the team and you have to fork the repo, you can work on the main branch. That is perfectly fine because you will make a pull request to the original repository. However, if you are part of a team and you have access to the original repository, it's highly advisable that you don't work in the main branch and you make your own branch. How do you make your own branch? You use this command, git checkout -b, and then give it your name. Give it any name. I can make it Milan. I can make it test. I can make it feature name. In fact, let's just make it feature name. And now I'm in a new branch. How do I check which branch I am in? You won't see this obviously in your terminal. But how do I check what branch I'm in? I can just run the git branch command. As you can see here, feature name is highlighted, main is not, so I'm in feature name. You can also look at the current status of your project by running git status. There is nothing to commit. I've made no changes whatsoever, so this is perfectly fine. It looks like this is a very basic project. Let me just change the title to yes, let's make this hello open source version 2. That is my change. Of course, your updates can be way more than this. When you make a change and you have decided, okay, you've made a good chunk of change and you want to make sure that it is saved, you've saved your progress, you use the git commit command. And the way you do that is first you add the files you have changed. I just like to add all the files together. using the dot command. This tells me, okay, add everything in this folder. But I can also add specific files if I want to. Index.html, that works too. It's just easier for me to do this. Git add dot. This will add the files to the source control, or the changes to the source control. Now, if you want to verify what changes are being added, you can also use the -p flag. What will this do? It will do this. It tells me exactly what I have changed. As you can see, I added this string here, so that is what has been changed. That's the plus over here. Stage this link. Yes, I want to accept this change. Now I have accepted the change. I need to save it. You could say I'm quick saving, like in video games. And if you want to specify the message directly, because when you make a change, you have to specify what you have done. And you do that with a commit message. So I'll say, okay, added text v2 to the title. Yes, that is my message. So now I've saved my progress. I've saved my progress under a specific name. So now if I check the Git status, I can see that I have nothing to commit because I already made a commit. But I can push it. So how do I push it? When I do git push, and what is pushing, by the way? Pushing is you take the local changes you made on your computer and you're bringing it back to the repository on GitHub. So all the changes you're making here will go to GitHub, and then you'll be able to, everybody who has access to your GitHub repository will be able to see the changes you have made. Anyone who has access. So if it's a private repo, no one except you will see it. If it's a public repository, everybody will see it. And if it's a private repository but you have added some team members, all of them can see it. Now if I run git push in this branch, you can see that I have a bit of an error. It says fatal, current branch feature name has no upstream branch. What is upstream? Any branch on GitHub itself is upstream, and downstream is what's depending on that. Now it is telling me how to fix this. It's telling me to fix this by using git push set upstream origin feature name. So I just copy that, paste it here, and as you can see, it successfully pushed it. Now watch, you see how it's giving me a prompt here, like, okay, compare and make a pull request. I can actually see the branch. Hold on, let me refresh. I can actually see the branch I've made. Before there was no feature name, now there's a feature name. So this is another version of the source code. So if you had multiple people, I would probably make a branch for myself called Milan. Your friend would make a branch for themselves, and they would work on the features there. It really depends on how you manage your project, but the feature exists. Now how do I add it to the main branch? I can do something called a pull request. As you can see, when I clicked on make a pull request, it opened this page. It's telling me where to merge. So this is, it is trying to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to select my own repository. Always read the text that's been given to you. I just want to bring this to my repository to show how pull requests work. And yeah, my message is here. I can add a description explaining what changes I've made, and I can make the pull request. I can also assign people to review my pull request, whoever's on my team. I can add labels. And yes, so I made a pull request. I'm making a pull request now. As you can see in the pull requests tab, now I have pull requests. One pull request. Here you have the title, my description. I don't have any description, but your project lead or your team members, they can now review your code over here like this, and they can see what changes you've made, and they can actually, like, if they can actually review your code, so they can approve changes, request changes, and generally tell you what to change in your code. That's how the review process works in GitHub. And once me, the team leader or the project maintainer, once the project maintainer is ready to merge the pull request, you click merge pull request, confirm merge, and now it has merged the pull request. Now watch, before in the main branch, um, there was no change in the index.html, but now notice there is v2. The v2 I made in feature branch is now in the main branch. So I have successfully pushed my changes over to the main branch, and now I can, I have production. Now, when you're working on your projects, you will not need to fork any repositories because your team lead will add you to the repos. But if you decide to work on any open source projects in the future, you will probably have to fork the repo and make your changes. And you don't need to make a branch every time you want to make a new change. You can work on the main branch provided that you are working on a fork. Never work on the main branch in the upstream repository. Okay, so now I have made my change. I want to make sure this reaches the upstream branch. That way everybody working on the project can see it. So I'm going to open a pull request on the Nexus /hello open source, the Nexus account, the origin of everything, of this entire repository. And then I can give it my title, test pull request for GitHub video. And I can request people to review it if I want to. I can assign people to it. I can allow edits by maintainers. And I will make the pull request now. And then from my end, I will understand that, hey, someone has made a pull request, they want me to look at the code and they want me to add it to the main branch. So I'm not going to merge the pull request, obviously, because it would mess with the thing. So yeah, I've seen 11 of you have now forked it. I want you to try and make a small change. Any change is fine. And then make a pull request to this account. I will be able to see your pull requests, and that will be that. Hopefully you guys understood till now, right? I certainly hope you did. So I'll be waiting for a few pull requests from you guys. Just try and see if it works. Also, if you're curious about how I use the SSH thing, by SSH thing, let me show you what I mean. This SSH thing here, and how I'm able to push stuff. I go to settings, SSH and GPG keys, and then I can add a new SSH key. How do I add a new SSH key? Well, you can follow the instructions over here, connecting to GitHub using SSH keys. This works on Windows, Linux, Mac, it works everywhere. Exact same commands will work everywhere. So what you're looking for is generating a new SSH key and adding it to SSH agent. In fact, I'll give you the link directly so you can use it. There you go. That's how you add an SSH key. You just run the commands sequentially one by one, and then when you're done, look for the public key, that's the file with .pub at the end, and then you copy and paste the contents of that file over here, and then you'll be able to use SSH to clone any repository that you own. I see someone has already made a pull request. Title update by Amit. Good job. So you have your pull request. That works. If you when you start working on your repositories, again, don't fork anything. Just clone the repository, make your own branch, and then from those branches you make your pull requests. We'll configure it in such a way that you won't be able to push to main directly, but that's all fine. Now I'll also show you all the commits that have been made in the past. This is an older repository. We used this for another event too. I see Ria, Benny, Akhil, Evan, Dennis. A lot of people, they made their commits, meaning their changes have been noted down, and we can actually see the changes they've made in the repository, their contributions to the work. We can see each and every one. Do you guys have any questions about using GitHub? Because this is how you're going to be contributing to the projects as well. This is the workflow. You will have your WhatsApp groups too, but the way you will work on the repositories is using GitHub and using Git. So it's very important that you properly understand what's going on. So if you have any questions, just put it in the chat, and I'll respond. How to host a website? There are many options. For one, I'll show you some of the free options. One is Vercel. Vercel. I don't know if it was org. I'll just search for Vercel. So when you make a GitHub repository, you can actually host directly from GitHub too. It is possible. But I'll show you Vercel first. When you go to Vercel, you can actually make an account. Do I have an account? I don't have an account. Let me log in. I can log in with my GitHub account. And you'll notice that I've already tried to host some websites in the past. What I can do is I'll add a new project, and then I can import a GitHub repository directly. So this, by the way, this only works for Next.js, React apps and Svelte. This doesn't work for all kinds of projects. So if you're using something like PHP, this will not work. But yeah, these are all of my repositories on GitHub. I can import any of these repositories, well, not any of these, anything with React code in it, and I can set it up. If you want me to show you a demo, that's that. But there's also other options. There is Cloudflare. In Cloudflare, there's this thing called, I don't remember what it was called, Cloudflare Pages, I think. No, there's GitHub Pages. But there's also something on Cloudflare. Let me log in and show you. Cloudflare also has a very similar setup. You can basically choose the GitHub repository you want to host, and it will automatically import it, provided you're using something like Vite or Next.js or, well, not Next.js. Next.js actually doesn't work as easily. There's Svelte, many other options. They have that in the documentation. Where is it? Workers for platforms, compute. Workers and pages, yes. This is one of the websites I made for my department. I simply created a thing here. I imported a repository, right? And I can choose my user, and I can choose which repository to import. And it will automatically set it up. You can specify the domain or the URL, and the domain will look something like this. Let me show you. Like this. Whatever name you can provide, you can put it here, and then you'll have a .pages.dev. If you're using Vercel, you'll have .vercel.app. And then there's another option. It's called GitHub Pages. GitHub Pages. Now this person has used Vercel, but if you use GitHub Pages, you can basically go here to the settings, go to Pages, and then you can start deploying. So you can deploy from branch. You can specify which branch to deploy from, and then you can specify which folder everything is. If you go to Vite.js or any framework's documentation, they will actually have a guide on how to deploy to each framework. For example, if I go to Vite's documentation, right, and I look at deploying a static site, this will tell me how to deploy to GitHub Pages, Netlify, Vercel, Cloudflare Pages, and many other things. Render, Search, Google Firebase. GitHub Pages is the easiest to set up. You basically follow these instructions one by one, and then you just do that and it will work. You will have a website. Hopefully that clears things up. Did you understand that? If you want, I can actually put the documentation for this here too. There's also something on GitHub called Actions, GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions lets you run code or run some process as soon as someone does something in a repository. So if, for example, and I guess I can even show you my current project because that's a good example of a real world project. I'm currently building an app, Vibe. And you'll notice that in this repository, I have my app, my backend. This is actually a good example of how I separate my front end and my backend. But I also have this thing called .github/workflows, and then there's a YML file. What does this do? This lets me run some code or run a process as soon as someone pushes to or someone merges to this main branch. Meaning, if I make a change in my backend and I make a pull request and I merge the pull request, it will run this code, and what this code does is it updates it on my server automatically. So I don't have to manually go to my server, pull the repository, update everything, and then leave. GitHub will automatically do it for me, and I can just chill. That's another feature of GitHub. You have GitHub Actions. And in general, this would be called a CI/CD pipeline. Their preferred language in a lot of these CI/CD pipelines is YAML. This is YAML syntax. That's YAML. If you want to learn more about it, there's lots of resources on the internet. Like this one, this is free Codecamp is good. But yes, that's another feature of GitHub. Has anyone else made a commit? No, just 2 pull requests. Okay, I would recommend you guys try to do it, but otherwise, yeah, we are done with today's session. This is all you need to know to, get started with project contributions. There are many more commands to know. There's something called merge conflicts that you have to worry about, and I guess I can even show you some merge conflicts. Let's say I added another thing, git checkout, and by the way, this is how you switch branches. You do git checkout main, git checkout branch name. Let's say I try to do this, just mess something up. Git push. Git pull. Now let me just git commit this first. Git add dot git commit -m broken change, and then git pull. When you git pulling, it may give you a message like this. Basically, you have some changes locally. There are some changes upstream, and you need to decide how to bring those 2 changes together. So what do? I will use the command. I will decide which strategy I want. In this case, I really like using fast forward only, so that's what I do. Git pull -- no rebase. Sorry, I usually prefer this merge. I got it wrong. I use no rebase a lot. That makes things very simple. Now you will notice there's a merge conflict. What does merge conflict mean? There is some code upstream and there's some code in my branch, or like my local changes, and they're not Git doesn't know how to fix it, right? My changes and their changes, it doesn't know how to combine it together to make it make sense. So I have to do this manually. Luckily in VS Code, they have these nice little buttons that let you accept the incoming change, which is the change in upstream, or accept my code, which is the current change, or I can accept both changes, or I can even compare them. If I compare changes, it gives me a UI like this. I really hate this UI though, so I usually just use this. If you're using another code editor, like let's say you're just any code editor, I'll just use my text editor, you will see that it actually has text like this: head, this, and then commit. So head is my code, anything from head to this equals thing is my code, and then from this till this hash you see here, this is the upstream commit that is coming to my code. So I can decide what to do. This is only if you're not using VS Code. If you're using VS Code, you can just click one of these buttons. I'll choose to accept and commit change. And now the issue is resolved, and to solidify that I have resolved the issue, I can just git add dot git commit -m sync with main. You can put any message there, and then there, it's all fixed. The issue is gone. So that is how you fix a lot of issues in code, because when you're working on code bases and many people are working on the same thing, you may have issues like this. It's very common. Okay, I am done with today's session at least. That's all you really need to know to get started. If you guys have anything to ask additionally, you can always put it in the chat or raise your hand or like just speak to me directly. എല്ലാവർക്കും മനസ്സിലായോ? Anton John says yes. Okay then, I guess we can end it here. This is a short session, I think. Yes, this was still almost 1 hour. Hope you learned something, and you'll get an opportunity to exercise all of this by the start of next week. Bye bye.